There's a single moment when you realize everything you've been waiting for will never come. Not because the world is cruel, not because you're unlucky, but because you've been standing still, waiting for reality to shift, waiting for permission, waiting for life to finally notice you. But here's the truth Marcus Aurelius whispered 2,000 years ago, and it still echoes today. If you don't change reality, it will never change. You wake up, another day. Same thoughts, same doubts, same invisible cage. You tell yourself tomorrow will be different. But tomorrow looks exactly like yesterday, and the day before that. You're not broken. You're not weak. You're just stuck in a loop. A loop where you believe that life happens to you instead of through you. Most people live their entire existence waiting for the right moment, the right person, the right opportunity. They wait for reality to bend toward them, but reality doesn't bend. It reflects, it mirrors, it responds. And if you stand still, it stands still with you. Marcus Aurelius understood this deeply. He ruled an empire, yet he knew the greatest battle wasn't on the battlefield. It was within. The war between who you are and who you could become, between the life you accept and the life you create. This video isn't about motivation. It's about awakening. It's about understanding that the power to shift your reality has always been in your hands. You just forgot how to use it. So let's remember together. Before we dive deeper, if this resonates with you, hit that subscribe button. Leave a like. Comment below what reality you're ready to change. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. Your support helps this wisdom reach those who are searching. Now let's continue. Let me ask you something. When did you stop believing you could change things? Was it after the first failure? The second rejection? The third time you tried and nothing happened? Somewhere along the way you learned helplessness. You learned that effort doesn't always equal results. That hoping hurts. That trying again feels like walking into the same wall over and over. So you stopped. Not dramatically. Not all at once. You just stopped. You stopped dreaming out loud. Stopped taking risks. Stopped believing that your actions mattered. And slowly, quietly, you became a passenger in your own life. This is the pain so many carry. The silent ache of knowing you're capable of more, but feeling powerless to reach it. You look around and see others thriving, creating, moving forward. And you wonder what they have that you don't. But here's what Marcus Aurelius would tell you. They don't have more power. They simply decided to use the power they already had. He wrote in his meditations, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Most people focus on what they can't control. The economy, other people's opinions, the past, the future. They exhaust themselves fighting shadows. But the Stoics knew better. They knew that true power lives in one place only. Within your choices, your perspective, your response, your will. When you stop waiting for reality to change and start shaping it with your hands, your words, your decisions, that's when everything shifts. Not because the world suddenly becomes kind, but because you become intentional. There's a story about a man who spent years standing at the edge of a river waiting for the water to stop flowing so he could cross. He waited so long that seasons changed. His hair turned gray. His body weakened. And still he waited. One day a traveler passed by and asked him what he was doing. The man said, "I'm waiting for the river to stop so I can cross." The traveler smiled sadly and said, "The river will never stop. But you can build a bridge. You can find a boat. You can learn to swim. Or you can stay here and grow old waiting." That man is most of us. We're standing at the edge of our own lives, waiting for conditions to be perfect, waiting for fear to disappear, waiting for confidence to arrive, waiting for someone to save us. But no one is coming. The river will never stop. And that's not a tragedy. That's an invitation to move, to build, to act. Marcus Aurelius ruled Rome during plagues, wars, betrayals, and chaos. He didn't wait for peace. He created order within himself first, and from that inner order, he led an empire. He didn't control the storms, but he controlled the ship, and that made all the difference. So the question isn't whether life is hard. It is. The question is, will you wait for it to get easier, or will you become stronger? Let's go deeper. Why do we wait? Why do we surrender our power so easily? The answer lies in something psychologists call learned helplessness. It's a term born from experiments, but it describes a very human experience. When you try repeatedly and fail, your brain begins to believe that effort is meaningless. It stops seeing possibilities. It stops searching for solutions. It resigns. And resignation feels like wisdom. It feels like acceptance. But it's not. It's survival mode disguised as maturity. You tell yourself you're being realistic, but what you're really doing is protecting yourself from hope. Because hope, when disappointed, hurts. So you numb it. You lower your expectations. You stop reaching, and you call it peace. But deep down, you know it's not peace. It's a cage. A comfortable, quiet, suffocating cage. Marcus Aurelius said, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." Think about that. What blocks you isn't the end, it's the beginning. Every obstacle is information. Every failure is feedback. Every closed door is redirection. But only if you're moving. Only if you're acting. Only if you refuse to stand still. Imagine your mind as a garden. Every thought you think is a seed. If you plant seeds of helplessness, you'll grow weeds. If you plant seeds of nothing I do matters, though those roots will choke everything else. But if you plant seeds of intention, of action, of I will try again differently, you'll grow something beautiful. Not overnight. Not without effort. But inevitably. The Stoics understood this deeply. They didn't believe in positive thinking for its own sake. They believed in disciplined thinking. Thinking that serves you. Thinking that moves you forward. They practiced something called premeditatio malorum, which means premeditation of evils. They imagined the worst outcomes not to fear them, but to prepare for them, to rob them of their power. So when hardship came, they weren't paralyzed. They were ready. You can do the same, not by fearing change, but by knowing that even if you fail, you'll survive. Even if it's hard, you'll adapt. Even if it takes longer than you hoped, you'll keep going. Because the alternative, standing still, waiting, hoping life will shift on its own, is a guarantee of nothing changing, ever. There's a psychological concept called the locus of control. It measures whether you believe your life is controlled by internal forces, your choices, or external forces, luck, fate, other people. People with an internal locus of control tend to be happier, healthier, more resilient, not because their lives are easier, but because they believe they have a say in what happens next. And belief shapes behavior. Behavior shapes results. Results shape reality. This is the loop Marcus Aurelius lived by. He didn't wait for Rome to fix itself. He took responsibility. Not for everything, but for his part, his choices, his leadership, his mind. And in doing so, he became one of the most respected emperors in history. Not because he had power, but because he used it wisely. You have that same power, not over empires, but over your life, your habits, your reactions, your story. And that's more than enough. So how do you actually change reality? Not through wishful thinking, not through motivation that fades by Tuesday, but through something deeper, something the Stoics called prohairesis. It's a Greek word that means moral choice or the will to act. It's the decision to take ownership, to stop being a victim of circumstance and become an architect of experience. This doesn't mean you control everything. You don't. But you influence everything. By how you show up, how you respond, how you rebuild after you fall. Marcus Aurelius wrote, Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one. Stop theorizing. Stop planning endlessly. Stop waiting to feel ready. Start. Start small. Start messy. Start afraid. But start. Because action, even imperfect action, creates momentum. And momentum creates change. And change creates new realities. Let me give you a practice. A real one. Tonight, before you sleep, ask yourself 3 questions. 1. What is one thing I've been waiting for that I could start creating instead? 2. What is one small action I can take tomorrow toward that? 3. What belief is keeping me stuck, and is it even true? Write them down, not in your head, on paper, because writing makes it real. It moves it from the realm of thought into the realm of commitment. This is how transformation begins, not with big declarations, but with honest questions and small repeated actions. The Stoics called this ascesis, which means practice or training. They knew that philosophy without action is just noise. Beautiful noise, maybe, but noise. True wisdom is lived. It's embodied, it's tested in the fire of daily life. You don't become courageous by reading about courage. You become courageous by acting even when you're afraid. You don't become disciplined by wanting discipline. You become disciplined by doing the thing you said you'd do, especially when you don't feel like it. This is the path. Unglamorous, repetitive, difficult, but real. There's a concept in psychology called behavioral activation. It's used to treat depression. The idea is simple. When you feel stuck, don't wait to feel better before you act. Act first. Movement creates emotion. Emotion follows action. You don't wait for motivation. You create it by moving. This is what Marcus Aurelius did every day. He didn't wait to feel like a good emperor. He acted like one, day after day, decision after decision. And over time, the actions became the identity. You can do this too. You don't need to feel confident to start. You start, and confidence follows. You don't need to feel ready. You act, and readiness builds. You don't need to feel powerful. You choose, and power awakens. This is the secret. Reality doesn't change when you feel different. It changes when you do different. Let me share something most people don't know about Marcus Aurelius. He didn't want to be emperor. He was a philosopher, a thinker, a quiet man who loved wisdom and solitude. But fate, or duty, or responsibility called him to lead, and he could have resented it. He could have spent his life wishing he was somewhere else, but he didn't. Instead, he wrote, "Do not act as if you had 10,000 years to live. Death hangs over you. While you live, while it is in your power, be good." He accepted his reality, not passively, but actively. He chose to meet it with virtue, with discipline, with intention, and in doing so, he transformed not just himself, but the world around him. This is the hidden lesson. You don't need a perfect life to live powerfully. You don't need ideal conditions to create meaning. You need only this: the decision to act rightly within whatever conditions you face. Marcus faced betrayal. He faced war. He faced plague. He faced the weight of an empire crumbling under corruption and chaos. And still he wrote in his private journals, the meditations, words of calm, of clarity, of control. He wrote them for himself, not for history, not for us, but because he needed to remind himself, daily, that he had a choice, that no matter what happened outside, he could choose his response inside. One of his most powerful teachings is this: the happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts. Not your circumstances, not your past, not even your future. Your thoughts, right now, in this moment. You can think thoughts that cage you, or thoughts that free you, thoughts that weaken you, or thoughts that build you. The choice is always yours, and that choice changes everything. There's a story, likely symbolic, about Marcus walking through the streets of Rome late one night, disguised as a common man. He wanted to see his city as it truly was. He encountered a beggar, bitter and angry, cursing the emperor for his suffering. Marcus didn't reveal himself. Instead, he sat beside the man and asked, "What would you do if you were emperor?" The beggar ranted about all the things he would change, all the wrongs he would right. And Marcus listened. Then he asked quietly, "And what stops you from changing your own life now?" The beggar had no answer, because he was waiting for someone else to fix things, waiting for power he didn't have. Marcus stood, dropped a coin in the man's cup, and walked away. The lesson is this: you don't need a crown to live with dignity. You don't need an empire to create change. You need only the willingness to start where you are, with what you have, as who you are. And that's enough. So let's bring this into your life, right now, today. Not someday, not when things are better. Now, because now is all you ever have. Marcus Aurelius said, "Confine yourself to the present. The past is gone. The future is imagined. This moment, right here, is the only place where your power lives. So use it. Here's how. First, identify one area of your life where you've been waiting for permission, waiting for confidence, waiting for the right time. Maybe it's your career. Maybe it's your health. Maybe it's a relationship you've been too afraid to repair or leave. Whatever it is, name it. Second, ask yourself, what is one small action I can take today that moves me toward change? Not a huge leap, just one step, one email, one conversation, one choice, one boundary, one new habit. Small actions compound. They build. They create pathways where none existed before. Third, commit to doing that action regardless of how you feel. This is key. Feelings are weather. They change. They pass. But commitment is the ground beneath your feet. It holds you steady when emotions storm. Let's get specific. If you've been waiting to start something, a project, a business, a creative pursuit, stop researching. Stop planning. Start creating. Even if it's messy. Even if no one sees it. Start. If you've been waiting for your health to improve, stop waiting. Move your body today. Drink more water. Sleep earlier. One choice. Now. If you've been waiting for a relationship to heal, reach out. Send the message. Have the conversation. Stop expecting them to move first. You move. If you've been waiting to feel less anxious before you act, reverse it. Act, and the anxiety will lose its grip. Because anxiety feeds on inaction. Movement starves it. This is practical stoicism. This is applied philosophy. Not theory, not inspiration. Action. Marcus Aurelius had a practice. Every morning he would remind himself, "Today I will meet people who are meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, jealous, and resentful, but I will not be surprised or disturbed, because I know such people exist, and I know that my job is not to control them, but to control myself." He prepared his mind. He took responsibility for his inner state. You can do the same. Before your day begins, set your intention. Not what you hope will happen, but how you will show up regardless of what happens. I will be patient. I will be kind. I will be focused. I will do my part. This simple practice changes everything, because it shifts you from reactive to proactive, from victim to creator, from waiting to acting. And that shift is the birth of a new reality. There's something I need you to understand. You are not broken. You are not behind. You are not too late. You are exactly where you need to be to begin. The pain you've carried, the waiting, the doubt, it wasn't wasted. It taught you something. It showed you what doesn't work. And now you know. Now you're ready. Not because everything is perfect, but because you finally realized that waiting for perfection is the trap. Life is messy. Growth is uncomfortable. Change is uncertain. But stagnation is suffocating. And you've been holding your breath long enough. So breathe and move. Marcus Aurelius once wrote to himself, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think." He wasn't being morbid. He was being honest. Life is short, and every day you wait is a day you don't get back. Not to scare you, but to wake you. To remind you that your life is happening now, not later. Now. Think about someone you admire, someone who changed their life, built something, overcame something, became something. They didn't have a secret map. They didn't have superpowers. They just refused to stay stuck. They made a choice, and then another, and another. And over time, those choices became a life. That's available to you too. Not because you're special, but because you're human. And humans, despite everything, are capable of remarkable transformation. We adapt, we endure, we rebuild. It's in our nature. But only if we engage with that nature. Only if we stop resisting our own potential. The Stoics believed that every human has a daemon, an inner spirit or genius, a guiding force that wants you to become who you truly are. But it can only guide you if you move, if you act, if you choose. It can't drag you. It can only light the path. And the path appears one step at a time. So here's my question for you. Not rhetorical. Real. What reality are you ready to change? What part of your life have you been allowing to stay the same? Not because you want it to, but because you're afraid to disturb it. Name it. Feel it. And then decide. Decide that today, right now, you stop waiting. You stop hoping for magic. You become the magic. You become the change. Because if you don't change reality, it will never change. And that's not a curse. That's a gift. It means you have power. You always did. Let's talk about identity. Because the biggest thing stopping you isn't the world. It's who you think you are. You've built a story about yourself. Maybe it's a story of limitation. I'm not the kind of person who, I've never been good at. I always struggle with. These stories feel true, but they're not. They're just repeated. Repeated so often that they became beliefs. And beliefs shape behavior. Behavior shapes results. Results confirm beliefs. It's a loop. But here's the secret. You can break the loop, not by trying to believe something new, but by acting differently. Action rewrites identity. When you do something that doesn't match your old story, you create evidence. Evidence that maybe, just maybe, the story was wrong. And once you have evidence, doubt creeps in. Doubt about the limitations, curiosity about what else might be possible. And curiosity is the crack where light gets in. Marcus Aurelius understood this. He was raised in luxury, but he trained himself in hardship. He practiced discomfort. He slept on hard floors. He wore simple clothes, not because he had to, but because he wanted to prove to himself that he could. He wanted to rewrite the story that comfort equals happiness. And in doing so, he became resilient, unshakable, free. You can do this in your own way. You don't need to sleep on floors. But you can do hard things. You can have the difficult conversation. You can start the project. You can set the boundary. You can say no. You can say yes. Whichever you've been avoiding, do that. And watch your story change. Not all at once, but slowly, surely, powerfully. There's a concept in therapy called cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT. The idea is simple. Thoughts, feelings, and behaviors are connected. If you want to change how you feel, change how you think or how you act. But here's the thing. Changing thoughts is hard. They're automatic, ingrained. But changing behavior? That's concrete. You can decide to do one thing differently today, and that one thing creates a ripple. It proves you can. And that proof builds momentum. Momentum builds confidence. Confidence builds identity. And identity shapes reality. This is the alchemy. This is how you change. Not by waiting to feel different, but by doing different. And letting the feelings catch up. I want you to imagine something. Imagine yourself 1 year from now. Two versions. In one version, you continued waiting. You let fear win. You stayed comfortable. You didn't disrupt the patterns. And you're still here. Still wondering. Still hoping. Still stuck. How does that feel? Really feel it. The weight. The regret. The quiet ache of knowing you could have tried. Now imagine the other version. The one where you decided. Where you took the first step. Even scared. Where you acted even imperfectly. Where you chose yourself. And yes, it was hard. Yes, you stumbled. But you kept going. And now, 1 year later, you look around and barely recognize your life. Not because everything is perfect, but because you're different, stronger, freer, more you. Which version do you want to be? The truth is, no one can make that choice for you. Not me. Not Marcus Aurelius. Not anyone. Only you. But I can tell you this. You are more capable than you believe. More powerful than you've been taught. More deserving than you've allowed yourself to feel. And the life you want, the one you've been dreaming about, isn't on the other side of luck. It's on the other side of action, of courage, of the decision to stop waiting and start building. Reality won't change for you, but it will change with you, through you, because of you. And that's the most beautiful truth of all. You're not powerless. You never were. You were just asleep. But now you're waking up, and the world is waiting to see what you'll do next. Marcus Aurelius spent his life leading, but every night he returned to himself, to his journals, to his thoughts. And he wrote not as an emperor, but as a man trying to live well, trying to choose rightly, trying to be good. He reminds us that greatness isn't about titles, it's about choices. Small, daily, unglamorous choices to do better, to be better, to keep going. And those choices over time create a life worth living. Not a perfect life, but a meaningful one, a powerful one, a true one. That's what's available to you. Not someday, today, right now. So take a breath. Feel your aliveness, your potential, your power. And then decide. Decide that you will no longer wait for reality to shift. You will shift it. With your hands, your heart, your will. Because if you don't change reality, it will never change. But if you do, everything does. This is your moment, not tomorrow, not when you're ready. Now. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy." I'll adapt that. The best response to a life that hasn't changed is to become the person who changes it. Stop waiting. Stop hoping. Stop expecting. Start doing. Start choosing. Start becoming. Your reality is a mirror. Show it someone worth reflecting. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being brave enough to consider that maybe, just maybe, everything can change. Because it can. And it starts with you. If this video moved you, share it. Someone in your life needs to hear this. Subscribe for more depth, more truth, more philosophy that actually changes lives. Leave a comment. Tell me what you're going to change. I'll be reading. I believe in you, even if you don't yet. Now go and create the reality you've been waiting for. It's time.